Microsoft India. I'm sure many of you must have attended or have heard of Forefront products from Microsoft, Forefront suite of products. And many of you must have also attended a few of the webcasts that we've been delivering on Forefront suite of products for the past few weeks. So every Wednesday we've been talking about one different product from Forefront suite of products. And today I'm going to be dealing in detail with the Forefront Protection 2010 for Exchange Server 2010. Now, as many of you would be knowing that one product from the 2010 family which is available for public use now is Exchange Server 2010. Most of you, I believe, would be using Exchange Server 2007 existingly and would have already made good use of Forefront protection for Exchange Server 2007. Those who have been using Exchange Server 2007 would have seen the kind of efficiency Forefront protection for Exchange Server gives you and the kind of simplified management it provides you for the Exchange Server. Now, moving ahead from Exchange Server 2007 and Forefront protection for Exchange Server, we have in line Forefront Protection 2010, which is especially designed for Exchange Server 2010 architecture. So in this particular webcast, which is primarily meant for administrators who are handling and working with Exchange Server for a long time, this webcast will really get into deeper details in relation to Exchange Server's architecture and how Forefront Protection for 2010 really integrates well into the architecture for Exchange Server 2010 and provides inbuilt protection into Exchange Server. So let's get started with it. Myself, I'm Ranjana Jain. I work as an IT Pro analyst in Microsoft India, and as introduced earlier, my blog is at ranjanajain.com. I highly encourage you to visit my blog for a kind of updates on various products and these technologies, etc. You can also visit our ongoing activities in India through www.technet.in, which is a very comprehensively built website and gives you all the updates on what's happening for the IT administrators in India and what we as a team are doing for Microsoft, the kinds of activities and events we keep on doing for IT administrators and IT managers in India. Very well. So let's get started with our session for the day. So today we'll be covering various things on the agenda. As I told you, we'll be talking about Forefront Protection 2010 for Exchange Server, having an overview of it. Then we'll be getting into the management of Forefront Protection for Exchange, the deployment considerations, engine and definition updates, basically getting into more and more detail of its features, how to configure them, and what all things you need to keep in mind while doing all these activities. So getting started with the first thing on the agenda, that is Forefront Protection for 2010 Exchange Server overview. Let's see what we have we have on our slides to cover for that. So what is Forefront Protection for Exchange Server? So Forefront Protection is an easy to manage premium anti-malware and anti-spam protection solution for Microsoft Exchange Server that is built on three pillars. First, Forefront Protection provides comprehensive protection with on-premise or in the cloud anti-spam protection, multiple anti-malware engines, and content filtering. Second, this is integrated security solution for Exchange 2007 and Exchange 2010. It allows to monitor security state in real time and investigate security issues. Third, the management of protection here is greatly simplified by the integration with the Forefront Protection Management Console. This console provides management for common security policies for both on-premise and the cloud protection. So it also helps with fast response to security incidents. Among the features of Forefront Protection for Exchange, I want to mention the RMS encrypted scanning, the Rights Management Services encrypted scanning, which is only there for Exchange Server 2010. It gives you spyware scanning by Microsoft Antivirus Engine only. It gives you actions based on threat level, not on the category. So no specific file exceptions or whitelistings are there. It gives you built-in heuristics capabilities for better zero-day detection. It gives you enhanced counters and reporting for better email and incident counting with Forefront Protection Management Console for centralized reporting and security tasks. So, what are the latest changes to this Forefront Protection for Exchange? So, Forefront Protection for Exchange gives you integration in standalone console as well as the Forefront Protection Management Console. The Forefront Protection Management will be at no additional cost to Forefront Protection for Exchange customers. When you're moving, in any ways, you're moving to 5 antivirus engines instead of 8. So this is here a brief overview of the shift products, not including the service packs. Previously called as Sibari Antigen, it led the market in being first to protect Domino and was resold by McAfee. Antigen displaced Exchange competitors on 5.5 by having the most scalable integration, an approach first hated but later recognized by Microsoft. Antigen has been leading the features such as multiple antivirus engines, file filtering, and file typing. In 2005, Microsoft acquired Sibari, and 2 years later, SP1 for Forefront Security for Exchange Server was released. It was updated in 2008 with support for Exchange 2007. So as you can see, Forefront now has a history of providing timely protection by shipping the workloads such as Exchange. So let's review the Exchange architecture. First of all, Exchange Server 2007 installations are more complex than Exchange 2003. Servers can be mailbox, hub transport, client access, or edge transport roles. The Forefront Protection for Exchange should be installed on most Exchange roles to provide layered security, the DID, which is the defense in depth approach. But please keep in mind that there is no need to install it on the client access server or the unified messaging role. Perhaps the most significant security advancement since Exchange 2003 is the introduction of new server roles and specifically the edge server role. The edge server comes completely out of the box in Exchange Server 2007, and it greatly simplifies the setup process. More importantly, it isolates spam traffic by over 70% of all the emails, which composes only almost 70% of all the emails from your Exchange infrastructure, contributing to better performance. So it comes with a long list of new antivirus, anti-spam features, which we'll review shortly based on the Forefront Protection for Exchange. So to elaborate on protection configuration, let me review the typical Exchange 2000 topology. Now there's a lot on this slide, so we will step through the rows one at a time. So let's think about a message that arrives at an organization with Exchange 2007 installed. The edge transport server sits isolated in the perimeter network, routing messages to and from the internet. Messages are then filtered using a long list of agents that scan connections, sender ID, and content. Along with these content filters, there is an antivirus filter support. This is where Forefront comes in as an excellent solution. Once the message is deemed safe, the edge passes it along to a hub transport server. Next, the message moves through the connectors to the hub transport. Communication between the edge and the hub and other server roles are secure and encrypted by default, another Exchange 2000 benefit. On arrival at the hub transport server, transport rules are applied to further filter the message. Now the hub transport server now passes the message to the appropriate mailbox server. If the user is currently connected to the mailbox server from the Microsoft Outlook 2007, they are notified about the arrival of a new message. The message is retrieved by the remote client, Client-side protection is also important. So Microsoft Outlook uses a smart screen-based spam filtering. Finally, all the new unified messaging server can link into your your PBX with the attached voice message placed in the user mailbox. And now I want to focus your attention on how forefront protection for Exchange complements to Exchange protection, that is, where the threat management gateway fits in. Forefront protection for Exchange on all the nodes and how they work together. Process of starting with spam filtered at the edge, then email scan for malware, and scan to prevent rescanning. Then it continues at the hub transport server to provide defensiveness. Finally, clear and verified email will be delivered to the user's mailbox on the mailbox row server. Please note that the client access server and the unified messaging do not require the forefront security for Exchange. So we have the following two choices for message filtering and edge transport server role protection. Forefront security for Exchange server. It provides comprehensive protection with multiple scanning engines, spam prevention, and anti-spyware capabilities. Gives you simplified management with Sterling integration. Gives you integrated security for Exchange Server 2007 and 2010. The second is the Forefront Online Security for Exchange, or FOPE, that provides comprehensive protection against latest malware and spam, backed up by 100% virus, 98% spam detection SLA. It is integrated for efficiency and increased performance. It gives you simplified management with web user interface and end user quarantine management. So we'll discuss the Forefront Online Protection for Exchange in detail later in some other webcasts. But here I want to turn your attention to the hybrid scenario that provides best of both worlds for Exchange protection. So let's get deeper into the forefront protection for Exchange management. So first of all, forefront protection for Exchange works through leveraging Exchange virus API. Forefront protection for Exchange integration is optimized for performance, so files are not rescanned unnecessarily. There are up to 10 scanning threads to help ensure users are not delayed waiting for documents to scan. One of the new features in Exchange 2010 is automatic information rights management integration on the server level. It allows to scan protected files on the fly. So to turn your attention to forefront protection for Exchange components, I want to start with architectural overview of solution components. For all forefront server products, forefront uses a similar common entity to perform malware scanning and filtering, a scan process that communicates to the hook agent and works independently to avoid disruption to server application processes. This is how scan process works from 2000 feet view. Now, we have a file navigator to examine files that are encoded, compressed, archived, or container-like Office files, for example, zip, rar, exe, doc, docx, mime, etc. We have multi-engine scanner. After a file is extracted from the navigator, we send the file to each selected engine to scan and normalize the results. We also send the file for file type filtering and keyword filtering. For forefront protection for Exchange, we only keyword filter the message body. Then we take the actions based on the results, either purge, delete the mail, identify on subject line, or just log the detection. To expand on the configuration part, in Sterling, the configuration and database processing portions of the controller were split into separate processes. This allows the controller to concentrate on scanning and for the two new processes to handle configuration, incident, and quarantine actions. PowerShell is becoming the standard command line interface for Microsoft Server products. This standardization has many benefits. PowerShell provides a consistent user interface with large set of built-in commands. PowerShell command design is covered by the rigid syntax guidelines. PowerShell commands are called CMDs, as we have discussed earlier also. PowerShell interfaces are called snappings. Each snapping uses the same command parser, thus the command processing is consistent. The PowerShell parameters can be defined with range and value validation. PowerShell itself does not process text. It is a .NET-based interface that processes objects. This helps to provide a more powerful scripting interface than the standard command line interface. Forefront protection for Exchange comes with completely redesigned management interface and unified management architecture. The Forefront management shell provides a fully scriptable interface to Forefront protection for Exchange. The GUI is implemented on top of the PowerShell interface, providing the assurance that all functionality provided in the GUI is also implemented with PowerShell. Administrators can automate all tasks with PowerShell scripts. Finally, the Forefront protection management or other third-party tools can leverage it for management because this is a completely open platform. The new user interface have a look and feel that echoes other Microsoft products, especially Microsoft System Center. So if you've used Microsoft System Center, this user interface will look quite familiar to you. The layout should be recognizable to users of new Microsoft Server products. A central pane contains the primary screen information such as configuration settings or a list of quarantined items. This pane is flanked by navigation tools in the left pane and actions tool in the right pane. So the administration screens are now grouped into three primary areas: monitoring, protection settings, and tasks. To move between areas, just click the desired button in the lower left corner like in the Outlook. So the subdivisions within each area appear in the Explorer like hierarchy above the buttons. The monitoring area provides details about detected threats, filter matches, and system health. The protection settings area is primarily for configuration. Administrators may change the out-of-the-box protection settings as well as create customized filters. The task area is for manually launching a one-time job such as an on-demand scan. The protection settings are grouped by protection technology: anti-malware, anti-spam, and filtering. The global settings area provides configuration settings that apply across all the protection technology. So depending upon the Exchange server role, whether it is Edge, Hub, Mailbox, or combined Hub or Mailbox, Forefront protection for Exchange contains subgroups within anti-malware and filtering. This enables administrators, for example, to create different anti-malware and filtering settings for an Exchange Edge or Hub and the Exchange Mailbox. Most administrators will use Forefront user interface to view the current protection events or incidents. When malware such as viruses or spyware are detected, the incident is logged and can be viewed in the incident screen. Incidents can be filtered so that the user interface shows only those of a particular type or that occur at a particular time, for example. The monitoring area also provides a view into the database of items that have been quarantined. So the standalone console is designed for use on a single Exchange server. As organizations grow, the number of Exchange servers is almost certain to grow. Server administrators will find managing protection for multiple servers more efficient with the Forefront protection management. Switching from administering an individual server to multiple servers might normally incur retraining costs. However, the Exchange policy screens in Forefront Protection Manager are the same as those in the administration console of the single server Forefront product. So it reduces the need to relearn how to configure Forefront protection policies. For example, this screenshot shows the anti-malware protection policy screen for the Exchange mailbox. So in this example, there are the real-time scanning policy screens. And this is how it looks like in the forefront protection management console. The configuration screens in the forefront server are essentially identical to Exchange policy configuration screens in the forefront protection manager. Let's have a look at the deployment considerations that should be kept in mind while deploying forefront protection for 2010 for Exchange. Now, these are the server requirements for Microsoft Forefront Protection for Exchange. Of course, all system memory and disk space requirements for Microsoft Exchange Server 2007 SP1 or Exchange Server 2010 must be met before you can install the Forefront Protection for Exchange. Too little available memory or disk space may impact the ability of Forefront Protection for Exchange to scan large files. With each additional scan engine used, more memory is needed per scanning process. Also, you cannot install Forefront Protection for Exchange if previous versions of Forefront Security for Exchange or Antigen are installed. I want to mention that for testing environment, x86 architecture-based computers are also supported. But note that there is also very useful Forefront Security for Exchange Server capacity planning tool that is available for free download on download.microsoft.com. So let me expand some main steps of Forefront Protection for Exchange deployment process. This is starting off by verifying the Forefront Protection for Exchange system requirements and setting up Exchange Server performance baseline. Then you need to install the Forefront Protection for Exchange on a local server specifying program and data folders. This is done by using the MSI-based setup wizard. Then you are performing initial Forefront Protection for Exchange configuration and performance tuning. And finally, you may integrate it with the Forefront Protection Management for reporting or multi-node management based on the shared Exchange security policy. So let's now review a more complex scenario with multiple Exchange servers. First of all, I'll start by summarizing Exchange high availability options. These are the clustered continuous replication in Exchange Server 2007 and the new database availability groups in Exchange Server 2010. Both the modes are supported by Forefront Protection for Exchange. The Forefront Security for Exchange recognizes Windows Server 2003 and Windows Server 2008 active and passive clusters. To install Forefront Protection for Exchange in a clustered environment, you must log on to the local computer as a domain user with an account that has local administrator rights. Forefront Protection for Exchange must be installed on each node. All program files must be installed onto the local drive. Features of the installation include configuration data, which is configuration.xml file, which is associated with the clustered mailbox service, the CMS, not the physical nodes. Because of this, the data needs to be configured only for each CMS, regardless of how many nodes you have. Similarly, engine definition files are associated with the CMS so that both active and passive nodes are characterized. Configuration data kept in the registry is replicated on a CMS basis when the CMS moves from one computer to another computer during a failover event. In the Forefront Protection for Exchange, the Forefront Protection Management user interface, which is either single node or multi-node, should be connected to the CMS. If you try to connect to the physical server, you will be asked to select the CMS to which you would like to connect. There are some additional considerations for clustered systems. For example, you should install Forefront Protection for Exchange on the active node first and then on the passive node. As in most installations, setup updates shared Microsoft files on all computers. If you are requested to restart your computer, you do not have to do that immediately, but it may be necessary for certain Forefront Protection for Exchange features to work correctly. So, Do not, however, restart any computers until the open protection for exchange is installed on all the nodes. If you reboot during the installation on an active node, the CMS will fail over to the passive node. So since open protection for exchange has not yet been installed on the passive node, the CMS fails to go online, and then the cluster will come down stable. The CMS must also be recycled before open protection for exchange is used for the first time. The open protection for exchange will not be functional until you recycle the CMS. When you perform the initial configuration steps, your settings are replicated across the cluster nodes, so no separate configuration steps are needed for the passive nodes. For multiple server environments, open protection management includes a centralized management console that enables administrators to configure and manage protection on multiple exchange servers. To deploy policies and manage multiple instances of open protection for exchange, you must use open protection management. To install and manage the open protection for exchange in a multiple exchange server environment, first, you should install each instance of open protection for exchange individually. Second, on each exchange server running open protection for exchange, manually install the Sterling monitoring components, Sterling agent and the operations manager agent, so that the open protection management can successfully communicate with open protection for exchange. Using the open protection management console, create groups that include one or more instances of open protection for exchange, create policies for open protection for exchange, and then deploy those policies to the groups. So let me expand on some of the main points for the open protection for exchange deployment. We recommend that all transport nodes must be set to use the same scanning engines and bias settings. If the antivirus transport stance is turned off, each transport scan job will scan messages, either inbound, outbound, or internal, on each transport node, whether edge or hub. You should use this mode when you want to scan with the different engines at each server. The AV stance is determined by whatever the engines record. What engine it is, that is irrelevant. So if you have Microsoft as the sole engine on the edge role and it marks it as clean, then on the HT role, Kaspersky is the sole engine and rescan is not enabled, the message will be considered clean and it will not be rescanned. Actually, it's not a bad idea to mix and match the HT versus edge server engine choice. However, with the dynamic choice, that is probably the best bet. So let's have some discussion on how to configure and maintain engine and definition updates on the open protection for exchange. So after FPE, the open protection for exchange is installed, updates automatically begin downloading 5 minutes after your installation is complete. By default, open protection for exchange ensures that you are protected by performing updates every day on an hourly basis. Engine updates, definition updates, and worm list updates can be downloaded automatically from the Microsoft HTTP server or from another exchange server running the open protection for exchange. When the FPE downloads an update, it takes the engine offline, provided it has been enabled for a currently running scan job, automatically installs the update, and then puts the engine back online. The other engines continue to scan for malware. But note that an engine update refers to updating a new version of scan engine, that is, which replaces the older version, whereas a definition update refers to new definitions being added to an existing scan engine. You should expect to see definition updates occur frequently, but not the engine updates. Nevertheless, an update check for both is done at the frequency and repeat interval that you have specified. If no new files are available, nothing is downloaded for that engine during that update cycle. Let's now have a look into the anti-malware protection mechanisms of a forefront protection for Exchange. So Microsoft Antivirus, Kaspersky, CA, Norman, Virus Buster, minus the Sophos and the Authentium, 5 engines consistently provide the highest detection rates against the competition and represent an average response of 3 to 6 hours for new viruses, providing superior anti-malware protection compared to our competition. It gives you dynamic engine update capability. Now we are moving towards a service level model with our engine partnerships where we can maintain and even improve our detection capabilities in the future by having more flexibility in which engines the forefront server security line of products use. It helps us in maintaining the service effectiveness. It helps you investigating in other partnerships like CloudNAS that you've done already. So we have this advantage of multiple anti-malware engines in the product. With Forefront, customer is able to choose engines up to 5 to use during the scan. And now with Forefront Protection for Exchange, this is based on the service level model with the intelligent engine selection. Selected engines are controlled by multiple engine manager. It is responsible for balancing performance, scanning intensity, and providing uninterrupted scanning uptime, even during the signature file updates. In addition, to ensure that all scan engines remain current and effective, engine and signature file updates for each and every integrated scanning engine are downloaded, tested, and brought online as soon as they are available. If the downloaded file is found to be corrupt or has other problems, the multiple engine manager rolls back to the previous version and alerts the administrator so that the problem can be corrected prior to the installation and use. The intelligent engine selection policy setting controls how many of the selected engines should be used in order to provide you with an acceptable probability that your system is protected. There is a trade-off between increasing the probability of catching the virus and maximizing your system performance. The more engines you use, there's a greater possibility that all the viruses will be caught. However, the more engines you use, the greater the impact on your system's performance. But note that the intelligent engine selection policy setting only applies to virus scanning. It is not used in filtering or spyware scanning. You must select the policy for each scan, whether real-time, scheduled, and on-demand. You configure, and it is not global. So to configure the number of scan engines, you should select from the intelligent engine selection policy options like always scan with all the selected engines. This setting cues scanning if any selected engines becomes busy, such as during the engine update. This option generally increases the probability of virus catching at the expense of the system performance. You also have the option of scan with the subset of selected engines that are available. This option scans with all selected engines that are available. Scans continue with the available engines when one of the selected engines is being updated. So this option generally increases the probability of virus catching, but not at the expense of delays in the mail flow. The third option being scan with a dynamically chosen subset of selected engines. So Forefront Security for Exchange heuristically chooses from the selected engines based on the recent results. On an average, half of the selected engines are used in scanning any single object. So this setting can be seen as a neutral option that does not favor system performance over virus catching and vice versa. The last option is scan with only one of the selected engines. So Forefront Security for Exchange heuristically chooses only one of the selected engines based on the recent results. This option increases system performance but is not the optimal setting for catching viruses since only one engine is used. So forefront protection for Exchange can be deployed and configured in variety of ways, depending on the topology of your Exchange organization. The basic scenario in most Exchange organizations is that when mail arrives from the internet, that is the inbound mail, at a hub transport or edge transport server, it is scanned and by default stamped with the antivirus stamp to prevent the mail from being unnecessarily scanned again at the later transit point. Outbound mail and internet mail are scanned at the first hub transport server and are stamped with the antivirus stamp to prevent scanning at the other transit points. In all organizations, therefore, email traffic should be scanned as it is entering, exiting, or transiting from your network. These three basic scanning points are described in the following different areas in the diagram as you see. The transport scan runs on an Exchange 2000 server with either a hub transport or an edge transport role installed. It can scan in real time all MIME and UUN code based email messages that are inbound or outbound from the transport stack of an Exchange site or organization, as well as all internal mail. The transport scanner scans for viruses and attachments and for the embedded HTML viruses in the message body. We recommend that you set up a filter list for the transport scan job that contains the file types most likely to be infected. One difference between forefront protection for Exchange file filtering and Exchange file filtering is that the Exchange filters only on the file name, while the forefront protection for Exchange attempts to detect and filter files that match the file type, when possible, even if the file name has been changed. So this is how it basically works. So inbound mail from the internet is scanned at the edge or the hub role, whichever comes first. Usually it is done on the edge server and saves processing load on the hub and the mailbox server. You can, however, configure the scheduled scan to periodically scan all or some mail in the mailbox database with newer antivirus signatures when they become available. So let's see how it works for the inbound mail. Mail is scanned once by the edge. It saves the processing load on the hub and the mailbox server. So it's not scanned again. So the antivirus stamp is central to reducing the scanning load on the Exchange servers in your organization and increasing the overall performance of your mail system. The antivirus stamp, which is used in the Exchange Server 2007 to minimize duplicate scanning on the edge transport, hub transport, and mailbox server roles, is carried with the email. The antivirus stamp prevents mail from being scanned again at various transit points and when it is first deposited in the store. The conditions that must be met before the Microsoft Exchange Transport Service places an antivirus stamp on the message are as follows. The message must be scanned by Forefront Security for Exchange Server with at least one antivirus engine. The antivirus stamp cannot be used in a mixed antivirus vendor deployment because Forefront Security for Exchange Server will not trust a stamp that is placed in a message by any other antivirus solution. So either no virus must be found, or if a virus is found, it must be cleaned or deleted. If the message was updated, forefront security for Exchange server must successfully write the updated message back to Exchange. The antivirus stamp is also secure. Only trusted antivirus products running on the Exchange 2007 server can add an antivirus stamp that will be recognized by Exchange. Because there is never a reason for the stamp to exist on the mail from another organization, the Exchange Edge Transport or Hub Transport server will also strip off any existing stamp on inbound, which is the internet mail, and any existing stamp on outbound mail. Now, by default, outbound mail is not scanned at the mailbox server role, but in the transit at the hub transport server role. If an edge transport, excuse me, sorry for the interruption. It was a little noise outside. So by default, outbound mail is not scanned at the mailbox server role, but in transit at the hub transport server role. If an edge transport server is deployed in Exchange organization, the mail is not scanned at the edge transport server because it has already been scanned at the hub transport server. For the internal messaging, mail is scanned at the hub transport server as it is routed internally. By default, the mail is not scanned at the mailbox server where it originated, nor is it scanned at the destination mailbox server. See how it works for the outbound mail. The forefront security for Exchange server real-time scan runs on the Exchange server and provides immediate scanning of the following: the email messages and the mailbox send or receive, and public folders on the server. The email is scanned prior to being placed in the Exchange data store. During the subsequent days and months, more updated versions of the engine signatures are created. When an email is retrieved from the store, Exchange passes the email to forefront via the VS API hook. Forefront scans and cleans the mail prior to delivery to the end user. Multiple engines greatly reduce the chance that this may be needed. However, if a latent virus exists in the Exchange store, it will be rescanned on access. Viruses will be cleaned if possible, and the resulting mail will be sent on to the client. This method of scanning email messages in real time or on access is the most effective method for stopping the spread of infectious file infections. Now, there are various configuration settings that you can adjust for the transport scan in order to meet the needs of your environment. These include selecting the file scanning engine, setting the action when malware is detected, and specifying whether or not to quarantine files. FPE, the Forefront Protection for Exchange, offers flexibility in choosing which message queues to scan with a transport scan, whether inbound, outbound, or internal. In all of these scenarios, all mail is scanned for viruses during the transport into or out of your Exchange organization, but processing time and load is saved on the mailbox servers by spreading the scanning load among the hub transport and the edge transport servers. By default, forefront protection for exchange scans all inbound, outbound, and internet email messages. The new intelligent scanning does not scan email that has already been scanned. By default, email scanned at the edge transport or hub transport does not get scanned again when routed or deposited into the mailboxes. So this minimizes the antivirus scanning overhead to maximize mail system performance. It significantly reduces scanning impact at the store. Also, it can be turned off to allow scanning at all points. Heightened security on access or real-time scanning may be activated to ensure that all files being accessed will be scanned if the antivirus engines have been updated after the file was originally stored. Note that we recommend that these high security settings be used only in the event of a serious threat that requires constant rescanning of mail to protect users from a known threat requiring this level of protection. Now, to enable heightened security on-access scanning, heightened security on-access scanning is controlled by the general option setting, scan or scanner update. Following a scanner update, previously scanned files can be rescanned when accessed if this option is enabled. Now, during a virus outbreak, it is important to increase the level of protection on your mailbox servers. As you would all agree, it is possible that viruses can slip through the antivirus scanning on edge transport and hub transport servers before updated signatures are available. To protect against viruses that may penetrate your defenses during a virus outbreak and arrive on a mailbox server, we recommend changing the default forefront security for Exchange server configuration in several ways during an outbreak. This added level of protection ensures that all messages will be scanned upon the submission to mailbox database and also when updated antivirus signatures become available. Scanning when updated antivirus signatures become available is important during a virus outbreak because it is possible for infected messages to enter your messaging organization before virus signatures become available. By scanning the latest signature files, infected messages that may have been deposited into the mailbox database are likely to be detected and removed. This level of protection may place a significant burden on your server, so you should conduct careful capacity planning and performance assessment before installing forefront security for Exchange server on a mailbox server to ensure that the server is operating with enough spare processing capacity to tolerate Now, the forefront protection for Exchange scheduled scan enables you to scan mailboxes and public folders that are not covered by the real-time scan or that contain messages that can predate the installation of forefront protection for Exchange. So, scheduled scanning can be used to periodically scan an Exchange store for viruses. As is the case with the real-time scan, mail is scanned before it is saved in the store. So the scheduled scan is also helpful for scanning with engines that are different from those being used by the real-time scan. So it can be used to ensure that the content is scanned with the most updated engines. The scheduled scans are typically used to go deep into your information store, foregoing system performance in order to scan a wide range of files, including the items already in store. Another reason for using scheduled scan is in a first install or upgrade situation. In this case, there may be data already in the store that was never scanned. Using a scheduled scan would allow the admin to offload the bulk of the scanning to the off hours. So it is recommended that you run a full scheduled scan after installing the forefront protection for Exchange for the first time. Now there are various configuration settings that you can adjust for the scheduled scan in order to meet the needs of your environment. These include selecting the file scanning engine, setting the action when the malware is detected, and specifying whether or not to quarantine files. Note that when you configure the scheduled scan, the default is to scan only messages that have the attachment. So if you have also created subject line filters or sender domain filters, those filters only apply to mail that has attachment, not to all mail. So if you have changed the scheduled scan to scan all mail, then the filters apply to all mail. In other words, the filters are applied to whatever mail is being scanned for the malware. To move onto the scan task, the on-demand scan enables you to immediately scan specific mailboxes and public folders in order to assess malware concerns as they arise. It is also useful for scanning with engines that are different from those that are being used by the scheduled and real-time scans. Note that if you are using forefront protection for Exchange with Exchange Server 2010, a client access server or a CAS is required, and you must enable public folders for use with the on-demand scan. Mailboxes are enabled by default for the on-demand scan. There are various configuration settings that you can adjust for the on-demand scan in order to meet the needs of your environment. These settings can be adjusted by using the forefront server security administrator user interface and by issuing PowerShell commands. You can configure additional settings for the on-demand scan. These settings are not available in the forefront server security administrator user interface and must be configured by using PowerShell. So you can give the set FSE on-demand scan -cas network load balance CAS. After you have configured the on-demand scan, selected which mailboxes and public folders to scan, you can run the on-demand scan immediately. After running the on-demand scan, you can check its status by using the PowerShell get FSE on-demand scan -status command. I'd like to now turn your attention to the two new anti-malware features in forefront protection for Exchange. The first one is anti-spyware scan. As you know, spyware is software that threatens the security and privacy of the computer users. Spyware is usually installed on a computer without a person's knowledge. It ranges from unwanted pop-up ads to programs that can record keystrokes or even take over your computer. Spyware can slow computer performance, change a computer's configuration, and reveal personal data such as account information or passwords. The forefront protection for Exchange can help you combat spyware coming through your Exchange server. Although most of the anti-spyware configuration settings are bundled together with the antivirus settings under an anti-malware setting, the following spyware-specific settings are available in order to help you best configure forefront protection for Exchange to scan for spyware. Engine updates for Microsoft anti-malware engine should be enabled if you have enabled anti-spyware scanning. The Microsoft anti-malware engine is the only scan engine that checks for spyware, so you want its engine and definition updates to be up to date. Depending on which scans you want to run, you must enable anti-spyware scanning for the transport, real-time and scheduled scans, like spyware scanning is not available for the on-demand scan. Similarly, for each scan job, you must set the action that you want the forefront protection for Exchange to perform when the spyware is detected. You can also set an action for antivirus scanning, and in cases where a file is detected as containing both a virus and a spyware, the antivirus action settings shall take precedence. And the second one is the protection for write managed content, thanks to the new Exchange 2010 integrated rights management. So this is basically how it works. to digress for a moment, let's consider the worm attack scenario. Prior to the advent of worms, viruses were typically infected attachments that were sent along with a legitimate email messages. That is, the message body of the email contained the information valuable to the recipient, but the attachment was infected and had to be blocked. Because of this, the email message body was delivered to the recipient, so they would be aware that someone had communicated with them. A worm virus, however, is entirely useless. The message body itself is a part of the virus and contains no useful data. Yet antivirus software would deliver these messages to the end user, typically with some kind of warning that cause the confusion and concern. To make matters worse, worm attacks would hit in the massive email spams with thousands or even millions striking in a day. This caused tremendous clutter in the mail stores, slowdowns on the networks, increased help desk calls, and a flood of user notifications, which in themselves formed a new problem. So to eliminate all of these problems, worm purge was introduced. The Open Protection for Exchange enables you to configure the transport, a real-time and scheduled scan jobs to purge messages infected by worms. A worm is a subclass of a virus that spreads from computer to computer. So unlike a virus, it does not need a host program and can self-replicate across computers. Worm purging is a powerful feature for containing the attacks before they harm your network. So Open Protection for Exchange identifies worm-infected messages using a regularly updated worm list, which is maintained by Microsoft and updated in the same way as the anti-malware scan engine. This file typically contains the names of the worms that are reported by current scan engines. As new worm threats are identified, the worm list is updated by Microsoft and the new update becomes available for download. Updates can be scheduled or can be performed manually. So let's move on to some of the anti-spam protection features in Open Protection for Exchange 2010. So Open Protection for Exchange Premium Anti-Spam Protection complements existing features in Exchange Server and in the Threat Management Gateway. So what do we have here? Number one is the connection filtering. It has the IP block list with specific list of IP entries to deny. It has an IP allow list with specific list of IP entries to allow. Microsoft DNS-DL Forefront Online Protection for Exchange Service, aggregated DNS data from a number of providers such as Hotmail, Spamhaus, and Forefront Online. Protocol filtering. It has got recipient filtering where it can block email from individual recipients. It can only allow mail from email accounts that exist in your organization. Sender filtering. It blocks outgoing emails for individual senders with sender ID filtering. It verifies that the messages originated from the domain that it says it is. And third, the content filtering. It gives you filtering by keywords and phrases. And finally, the content analysis that fingerprints message body and header and compares it to known bad fingerprint database provided by CloudWark. So if matched, the stamp is bad. So let's review the Forefront on-premise protection architecture one more time. At the core of our business is exchange transport pipeline, and this is exactly what we protect. There are multiple ways to send a message via exchange. For example, it can be done via pickup directory, the MAPI, or custom business logic, which is very common for the line of business applications. In existing implementation of Forefront, submissions that bypass SMTP receive module are transparent to anti-spam protection. However, this is changed in the Forefront Protection for Exchange. The anti-spam defense in the categorizer enables a topology-independent multi-directional anti-spam solution. This is due to the fact that we witness more and more infections when organizational assets become part of botnets. In some cases, uncovering infected machines is not a trivial task and might take a while to avoid detection. They will send it might take a while to avoid detection, and they will send only a limited amount of messages, let's say a dozen per day. So it's really difficult to detect such assets without having email intercepted in the transport pipeline and taking a closer look to its content. The open protection for exchange architectural model for anti-spam agents relies on Exchange Transport Extensibility Platform and in fact an extension of the publicly available API. At the heart of our agents is the agent runtime engine and a set of interfaces available from Exchange server. Our antivirus software built on top of the Exchange APIs from Exchange are a part of the shared extensibility framework. The full-featured SMTP hygiene is present on the forefront protection for Exchange with Exchange Edge Transport for SMTP stack that requires valid license. It is integrated with forefront security for Exchange, which has anti-malware, anti-spam, anti-phishing, and also supports generic SMTP mail servers. So to elaborate on the anti-spam protection, I will continue with connection filtering. This one is call out, IP allow, deny provided by Exchange, but managed by forefront. Forefront preserves all the lists across all the agents when it gets installed on Exchange. If you do not enable anti-spam functionality during the forefront protection for Exchange installation and you later want to enable it, this must be done using PowerShell. So until anti-spam functionality is enabled, any change that you make to the anti-spam setting with the user interface will not work. This is the PowerShell command to enable the FTE anti-spam functionality, set FSE spam filtering -enable $true. The other one is SMTP envelope and data related. Administrators can configure global exceptions to anti-spam scanning to allow messages from safe senders or domains to bypass anti-spam scanning. You can also enter the addresses of recipients from whom all anti-spam scanning should be bypassed. The global exceptions list include the sender exception list, which gives you sender addresses the sender addresses which are on this list are considered safe, and email messages from these addresses bypass the anti-spam scanning. The sender domain exception list, it gives you domain addresses which are on this list are considered safe, and email messages from these domains bypass the anti-spam scanning. The recipient exception list, all the email messages addressed to the recipients on this list bypass the anti-spam scanning. So this is how the forefront protection for Exchange sender ID filtering works. First, the forefront agent is triggered by connection request from the internet. Then forefront sender ID agent queries the sending mail domain's DNS server. Third, the mail sender's DNS responds to the query. And then the forefront sender ID agent verifies IP of connecting client whether it is authorized to send mail from the domain. So to turn your attention to the content-related anti-spam protection, of course we have forefront keyword filtering and true file type filtering in the product. More about this later in the presentation as I go through. And now Microsoft has partnered with CloudMark to offer their content analysis engine. So how it works? CloudMark looks at certain pieces of the message to generate a fingerprint. The fingerprint is compared against a database which is updated continuously from CloudMark. CloudMark service makes new fingerprint data available every 30 seconds. The engine checks fingerprint, then uses heuristics to determine if the message is a spam. So based on that determination, an SCL rating is applied that will be used by the forefront and Outlook to route the message appropriately. The Exchange Server 2003 servers will be supported by an antigen 9 SP that will be integrated with CloudMark. Now, Microsoft has partnered with CloudMark to offer their content analysis engine. CloudMark looks at certain pieces of message to generate a fingerprint. The fingerprint is compared against a database which is updated continuously from CloudMark. The engine checks the fingerprints and then uses the heuristics to determine if the message is spam. And based on that determination, an SPL rating is applied that will be used by Forefront and Outlook to route the message appropriately. So that's a graphical representation of how it works. So I want to mention that there are great resources on security trends called Microsoft Security Intelligence Reports. According to statistics from second half of the year 2008, Forefront Online Security for Exchange filtered 97.3% of all email it received, and 90% of bounce messages generated during December 2008 were the result of backscatter spam. The backscatter, which is also known as the misdirected bounces, is a side effect of email spam, viruses, and worms, where email servers receiving spam and other mails send bounce messages to an innocent party. This occurs because the original message envelope sender is forged to contain the email address of the victim. A very large proportion of such email is sent with a forged from header matching the envelope sender. Since these messages were not solicited by the recipients, are substantially similar to each other, they qualify as spam. As such, the systems that generate email backscatter can end up being listed on various DNS VLs. The root cause of the problem is mail servers accepting emails which after further checking they refuse. The Forefront Protection for Exchange provides backscatter protection with the hub categorization with rules and policies applied, special routing agent that acts only on the outbound mail, token identification definition with keys maintained and rotated to protect from the bounced emails. So I'd like to summarize the premium anti-spam features that we have in Forefront. Some of these are provided by Exchange Edge Transport component and others are Forefront Security for Exchange, which are the source analysis or connection filtering. First layer, good to reject, here to save additional processing. IP allow list, block list works, get the NDR on sender, which is no indication on the threat management gateway. The IP allow list bypasses all other spam filtering. IP allow list providers or block list providers which are not in beta 2, the DNS VL queries. MSDNS, if IP is listed, it is lost.
Please pardon the interruption. Your conference contains less than 3 participants at this time. If you would like to continue, press star 1 now, or the conference will be terminated.
Alright, so it gives you protocol analysis. SMTP targeting, which is 5-second delay recipient lookup fails to combat the directory enumeration. Limiting submission rate, which is default is 600 per minute per IP. Safe list enforcement, where the user safe list via Outlook. Mailbox assistant with Active Directory edge sync to perimeter. Sender filtering that blocks emails from specific emails or domains. Recipient filtering that blocks emails to specific emails not in the GAL. backscatter filtering, which blocks NDRs if someone spoofed your address to send spam, and outbound spam scanning. It gives you content analysis by CloudMark Engine, which gives you fingerprints the message body and header and compares it to known bad fingerprint database, which is updated every 45 seconds. If match, stamp is bad. If no match, it uses heuristics. It assigns an SCL to the messages, which then gets action. And finally, the client analysis with junk email filter. So let's now get into the content filtering feature of forefront security for Exchange Server. You can perform filtering functions by using both Exchange Server and forefront protection for Exchange. Many filtering options are available in Exchange. These options are automatically enabled on edge transport servers, but must be enabled on hub transport servers manually. Although the configuration steps are different for each product, Exchange provides filtering functions that are similar to those of forefront protection for Exchange with several notable differences. Exchange offers the following functionality that forefront protection for Exchange does not. It gives you filtering on the two field, CC field or both. Forefront protection for Exchange filters only on the two fields. Setting levels of importance for each filter. The ability to use a distribution list rather than having to input each item, for example, in an email address, in a filter list. The forefront protection for Exchange offers the different functionalities that Exchange does not. It gives you, it helps you performing case-sensitive keyword filtering. It helps you performing the file filtering by file types. You can use a combination of Exchange and forefront protection for Exchange filtering options to get the most complete filtering functionality. Filtering is performed first by Exchange and then by forefront protection for Exchange. So Exchange filtering takes precedence. For example, if you set a delete action for a filter match in the Exchange, the file is deleted before it is scanned by forefront security for Exchange. But note, if both Exchange and forefront protection Exchange filtering are enabled, you will have to monitor quarantine for both Exchange and forefront security for Exchange, which anyways we don't want to do a lot of job for administrators. Anyways, one of the neat things in forefront is a true type file filter. This filter works by inspecting the file type, not the extension. So if you send a file to a friend and it gets blocked due to the type, what do? Forefront stops this. So what could you do then? Well, zip it. With forefront navigators, we bake the container into components and it will block this as well. So one of the best ways to infect a system is through social engineering, sending an exe under a different name and having the recipient rename it and run it. The forefront protection for Exchange file filter feature enables you to filter email attachments. The filter uses 4 criteria: file type, name, extension, or size. The file filtering offers flexible means to detect the file attachments within an email messages and other Outlook items including tasks and schedules such as meetings and appointments. If you want to filter certain file types, you can set the filter criteria by file type, file type selection to the exact file type you want to filter, and then type an asterisk as the file name. One advantage of using a wildcard and associating it with a specific file type is that it prevents the potential for users by bypassing the filter by changing the extension or name of the file. Also, FPE works more efficiently if you select the appropriate file type rather than selecting all the file types. The forefront protection for Exchange also supports up to 5 deep compressed file inspections and allows to select files for specific scan type. The keyword filtering helps you identify unwanted email messages by analyzing the contents of the message body as it is being delivered by the transport scan. By creating keyword lists, you can filter messages based on a variety of words, phrases, and sentences. Keep in mind that keyword filtering is only available for transport scan. For maximum flexibility, you can create your own list of keywords for which to scan. This is how you can create a keyword filter. One neat feature here is support for special syntax language to implement context filters with the help of within off. So to summarize everything I have said today, Forefront Protection for Exchange provides excellent features for premium email security with anti-spam filtering, anti-malware and content filtering, enterprise-ready policy and security assessment sharing, and hosted service integration. Here are some of the links where you can find more helpful information on Forefront Protection, Exchange Server 2010 and Forefront as it relates to Exchange Server 2010, new features on Exchange Server, those built within Windows Server 2008 R2, and how Exchange Server 2010, Windows Server 2008 R2, Forefront Protection for Exchange 2010 work better together. You can also find information on my blog www.ranjanajain.com as I told earlier, and find and keep a track on our ongoing activities for IT administrators on technet.in, which is specifically a website for IT administrators in India. So you can find all the updates from TechNet, offers, subscriptions, certification information from there. You can also go to the Forefront team blog by blogs.technet.com/Forefront, and you can even download the trial software for IT administrators for different technologies from technet.microsoft.com/evalcenter. So I will now open the session to questions if you have any. And you can ask me the questions from the Q&A tab of your live meeting, and I'll try to answer those questions using the audio over here so that they are audible to everyone. So if your question is, I have a messaging server, the other one is Edge server, how can I? So as I mentioned in the presentation, that different roles will have to be separately installed with Forefront Protection for Exchange. If you have a cluster, you will have to install it first on the active, then on the passive, and then servers on which you should install Forefront Protection for Exchange, and servers on which you should not install Forefront Protection for Exchange. All that was specified, so I hope your query was solved over there. No, Forefront would not support Lotus, Domino, or other messaging applications. For that, it is recommended that you migrate from Lotus, Domino's to Exchange platform, and that's a good opportunity for us. All right, so I don't see any more questions there. So thanks a lot for all of you for attending this particular live meeting webcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you would be wanting to see the other webcasts in the list for the next quarter starting this January. Wish you all a very happy new year, and we hope to see all of you in the following webcast every week, which we do especially for the IT administrators here in India. So I'll log off from this meeting right now, and there's one more question. Yes, Forefront Protection is available at the enterprise level. In fact, I would recommend that you go to the eval center and see or you just go to microsoft.com/Forefront and see the range of products, the enterprise product Forefront team has got for you, and I'm sure you'll be able to figure out the best products that fit in your enterprise, whether it is Forefront Security for Exchange, Forefront Security for SharePoint, Forefront Security for OCS, Forefront Security for Client, Forefront Security for Servers. We have a range of products that fit any kind of solution, any kind of server or client you have in your organization on the Microsoft platform. So I really recommend you go to microsoft.com/Forefront to find out, and even you can download the trial software and try working with them and see the flexibility of solutions you have with Forefront. So thanks a lot for attending this meeting once again. I would end this meeting over here, and I just hope to see you all next week also. Bye-bye.